So it's just me today. I am Erin Serwinski. I am the product and community manager for the Simon Initiative. And I want to make sure if someone could answer and make sure that I'm being heard, that would be really helpful. Great. Thank you. Thank you, Donna. I really appreciate that. So again, welcome to the OpenSimon Webinar series. This is a series meant to bring people together, experts, practitioners, to show off some technologies and learning science in the form of, examples and demonstrations of learning engineering techniques and tools. Really happy to have you all here. Appreciate that. In the last webinar, we presented information about using our course authoring platform, Echo, for improved course design, and the recording for that webinar will be available real soon. We're trying to get a YouTube channel established to upload all of the recordings from these webinars so that you all have access to them whenever you need them. And this week, I'm presenting information about how to use the RISE framework in our LearnSphere tool. Just so you know, the RISE framework is an automated process that identifies learning resources to be iteratively improved. So if you have a lot of different activities and resources that your students are using, this analyzes engagement against performance on assessments to really give you an idea of where to prioritize iterative improvement efforts. And this, we have a ready-made automated component in our Tigris application within LearnSphere, and I'll get into more of this later, that helps you do this in an automated way and provides a really nice visualization. So really excited to get started and share this with you, but I wanted to give you a quick poll first about your use and familiarity with RISE and LearnSphere. So let me launch this poll. And if you could just let me know how familiar you are. You either are familiar with both, just RISE, just LearnSphere, or not at all with either of those. And it looks like we have a really nice variety from the folks here today. So thanks for participating in that poll. I'm gonna end it and let you know that there's pretty much a spread across all of these with the participants today. So let me dig right in. So RISE stands for Resource Inspection, Selection, and Enhancement. And this was first developed by Lumen, by the folks at Lumen Learning. And there's some references here in case you want to dig in and read some of the background information about RISE. It was first developed for helping make decisions about OER resources, and OER stands for Open Educational Resources. And so it's developed to help figure out which of those resources, if you put a course together with multiple sources of OER content, then this was to help figure out which pieces of that content might be working best towards your student outcomes. And I want to mention that this is really part of the types of collaborations that we're looking for with the use of our tools and our techniques. So this was developed, the technique was developed by Lumen and then partnered with us to develop this automated workflow component in LearnSphere so that it can make the process of performing the RISE framework easy and automated. And so if you ever have any inspiration for, if you have a technique that you would like to automate in some way, you can always come and talk to us. So I'm getting some feedback that I'm dropping out some. Okay, let me try, that's probably my Wi-Fi. So I'm going to try something, an adjustment, and I hope it doesn't kick you all off, but if it does, I apologize in advance and I'll be right back. So let me try something here. I'm probably gonna lose you all, so sorry about this ahead of time. Okay, wondering if that's any better and if you're still here. Is everybody still able to hear me? And maybe it might even be a little bit better. Okay, I don't think I've lost you all. So I'm going to keep going. And let me know if this is any worse, or if it gets any worse for you. Okay, so again, I was saying that this was inspired by Lumen, the technique, and then we partnered with us to develop these tools. Okay, and thanks for the feedback. So I want to mention what I'm going to be demonstrating and how I've used and compiled the data that I'm going to be using in the demonstration. So we have a course at CMU, at Carnegie Mellon University, called Computing at Carnegie Mellon. And it's a course that all freshmen go through. So it collects tons of data, as you can imagine. We run it through our Open Learning Initiative. It's an online course. All freshmen have to take it. And it essentially it covers computing services and where to find help, as well as responsible computing practices. And it's been instrumented, being part of being an OLA course. It's been instrumented with lots of practice opportunities and formative assessment, quizzes, and high stakes exams. And so there's a lot of data to gather from it. And the folks who manage and teach the course, they will review that data. Actually, it's even sooner. I would say semester by semester, but this course is actually, I think, delivered as a mini, which means it's like a half semester course. So as you can imagine, they're reviewing all of this data they're collecting on thousands of students pretty regularly. So you can imagine, with all of those activities and resources available to the students online, figuring out where to spend the best time to get the most improvement into the course. They have a quick cycle of turnaround, and there's lots of places that they could dig in. So this is a perfect use case for this type of framework and analysis. And a lot of times before this analysis was available, they would go by, student complaints or feedback forms from the students, or even they'd take a look and see where students are kind of spending a lot of their time and try and figure out why, or, really on hunches and intuition, trying to dig in and turn around an iterative improvement cycle on the course as quickly as possible. So what RISE will do is analyze the use and engagement of each of the learning resources, however you define that, and I'll get into that in a little bit, against how that activity helps a student perform against a high stakes or final exam or whatever final kind of grade you have. And so what you're looking at here on the screen is a snippet of the data set that I uploaded into LearnSphere, or will import. I'll show you how to do that. And what it has is a listing of all of the skills. So for OLI courses, we break all of our learning objectives down into skills. And then we tag all of the learning activities and high stakes exam questions to those skills, so that we can analyze these components of the course against, mastery against a particular skill. And a skill is really just a smaller grain size of a learning objective, and usually is the component learning objectives within a larger learning objective. So if students can master those skills, then they are mastering the learning objective. And so we do all of this tagging. And so what you're seeing here is a column that is the skills. The second column, column B, is the use or practice. So it's all of those formative assessments that are tagged against that skill, how often or what the percentage of use is, how many students actually touch and use those activities. And then the third column is scores on high stakes assessments that are, again, related to that particular skill. So this is what we're dealing with. The data set that this analysis takes is essentially this, 3 columns at least that has, the name or some identifier of the activity or thing that the student is working on. Then an average score on all assessments for a specific outcome, and then the average views of each learning resource for that outcome, which usually takes in most learning management systems, takes the form of page views, or there's actually a number of engagement measures out there, and I'll also speak to this a little bit after I show you the analysis. So that's essentially what kind of data this takes, data set this takes, and I'm going to now change screens over to LearnSphere to give you a little demonstration of how quick and easy this is once you have that kind of data available to you. So give me a moment while I change my screen share here. And let me move some things around here. So I have LearnSphere here. Okay, and I apologize if I'm missing any kinds of questions in the chat. I'm trying to keep an eye on that at the same time. Okay, so here is a blank page or a workspace in LearnSphere's Tigris application. So if you go and log into LearnSphere or explore LearnSphere, there's a number of applications in there. You actually have links to things like, in fact, I can maybe even show you this. Links to DataShop and some data sets in the form of DiscourseDB, MOOCDB. Those are data sets essentially. And then Tigris is this analysis tool. And let me go back to. And when you enter Tigris, or as soon as you enter LearnSphere and you log in, you have access to all of your workspaces or workflows that you've produced, and then you can dive into each one. I came into this one and then wiped out everything that I had done previously so that I can recreate it for you. So first I want to mention that the RISE component is what it's called, is in this list of analysis tools. There's all kinds of things you can do in LearnSphere, and we'll probably have, in fact, the next couple webinars will be a deeper dive into LearnSphere and DataShop. But for now, I'm just going to tell you that this is an analysis tool, so I expand the analysis set of components, and just so you know, as you hover over any given one, it'll tell you, who created it in LearnSphere, give you some information about it, and also tell you what the inputs and outputs are. Correlation doesn't have a whole lot, but you can see RISE has a lot of information baked in, and so as soon as I hover over RISE, it'll give me this type of information about where it came from and what kinds of things are needed to run this analysis. And this is a simple drag and drop. So I just drag the RISE component out here, and it's processing, and it's giving me an error because I don't have it connected to anything yet. What I want to do now is I want to make sure that I run some sort of data set through this analysis. And to do that, I'm going to import my data set. And actually, to tell you the truth, when you import a data set, it's already available. It's available to you in your under your account in LearnSphere forever. So I could find this data set within LearnSphere itself, but I'm going to show you how easy it is to just upload a data set and import it. So I have these two components, and this is my data set. In order to get my data set in here, I click on the little gear, and it gives me this interface. And I want to upload my own file. So I actually could probably find my data set in here. I haven't looked, but there's a lot of different data sets. A lot of people add data sets all the time into LearnSphere and Data Shop and share them out with the world. You can actually upload data sets that you would like to either share work on or collaborate on, or you don't have to share them though either. You can keep them private as well. You have that option every time you upload one. So they want to make sure you're aware of IRB things if you're doing any kind of research with these data sets. And so I just clicked on upload your own file, and it gives me the types of files that I can upload. And this particular analysis takes a tab delimited. So I chose that, and I'm going to upload my file, and I gotta actually have it ready here on my computer. So I'm just basically uploading it from my computer. It's going to take a little bit, and then it's going to tell me it's done. And so that was nice and quick and easy. It's a small data set though too. So now I can close this, and my data is ready to use. It indicates that by saying ready. And now the only thing I need to do is I need to connect these together. So the reason that this is built this way, and I'm sure if you come to subsequent webinars where Ken Kadinger is actually going to be here with us the next time to talk through some of this stuff, you could string together a whole workflow of multiple analyses and imports and transform data into different types of data sets, and you could string together a whole bunch of workflows to if you're going to be running similar analysis on multiple data sets, you could have it ready to go here. But this one's a pretty simple one. Connect these together, and then I just hit save and run. And it doesn't take very long. Usually, see, it's completed already, and it's giving me the green light that it's good. It'll tell you if there's any errors. It'll say there's an error, and it'll usually tell you why there's an error that you can go in and investigate and fix. But to see the results of this analysis, you click this little magnifying glass. And what it does is it opens up a new window with, again, my data set, but with some extra columns that the analysis has performed. And the really cool thing about this, though, is the visualization. So it shows a visualization, and ultimately with, this is saying average pages viewed, but essentially we're defining that as, activities touched or activities engaged in. I think usually it's page views is a common type of engagement measure that you can get out of most LMSs. So it's just automatically called that. And then the average score on that high stakes assessment is correlated with that particular resource, puts it in these 4 quadrants. And the other cool thing about this tool is that you can actually drill in on any one of these dots and get more information about the analysis. But I'm going to skip back over to my PowerPoint presentation so that I can talk a little bit more about what this is actually doing and showing. If I can find it. Okay, there we go. So here we have a layout of a quick idea of how to analyze this, this visualization. So what the RISE framework does is it presents a scatter plot with, like I said, resource usage on the x-axis and grade on the assessments associated with that resource on the y-axis. This scatter plot is broken into 4 different quadrants, and it's using the mean of each variable being, of its origin, and to find sources that are candidates for improvement. That's what we're looking for here. This is all to analyze the number of activities and content in your course, to find out what may or may not be where you want to spend your time on improvement. And so resources that reside in each of the quadrants can be analyzed for more improvement efforts. And so if students looked at the content but still did poorly on the test questions, then there's further analysis that needs to be done from this. So things that are listed up in this quadrant are pretty effective. So these are resources that students have engaged with, and as a result, on those outcomes, have done well on the assessment items in the high stakes assessment, that they've done well on that compared to the ones in this lower right quadrant, which there's some ideas here about why they might be listed there. So these are resources that had high engagement. So the students used those formative assessments in this case of using OLI data. They used those formative assessments, but they still did poorly on the high stakes assessments that were measuring the same outcome. So you can imagine that's probably where you want to spend most of your time, or resources that are listed in this type of quadrant, because they have high engagement, but they're not contributing to student mastery. And then, of course, these other 2 quadrants are, the top left could mean that they have, so students are not engaging with those activities as much, but they could contribute to their high stakes assessment results. And so it could be that students already had that prior knowledge and skipped over those activities. They could have been, they look too easy, but you probably want to take a closer look at those and find out why that might be happening. Because of course you don't want to put activities, take the time to develop and design good activities and good resources that students just aren't using for some reason. And then with these activities or these learning resources, there's low engagement, and it doesn't seem like they're really digging in and using those, and they're not really contributing to student mastery. So again, it's a way of taking a whole bunch of stuff you might have in an online course, or scores and engagement data that you have, and really just organizing it into a way that will allow you to start to figure out why those resources are having a particular impact on student mastery. So I want to just stop there for a little bit and ask if there's any questions.
This is Donna from Johns Hopkins. I do have a question.
Sure.
Is something like this compatible with Blackboard, or do we have to build, or would we have to build like an integration? Like an LTI?
That's a good question. I think a lot of LMSs, and I'd have to look into Blackboard specifically. I haven't really done a whole lot of, I could probably even consult the experts that created this to find out what other LMS data they've worked with. But most LMSs, most learning management systems do have an ability to download data sets. And so we'd probably have to look into Blackboard to see if you download a data set, if you can get that engagement data, that's probably the trick. Another trick to this is that data against learning outcomes. So you have to know which activities and which assessment items are helping students attain which outcomes, right?
Right. No, I know what you mean.
Yeah, yeah. So part of one of the things that I know I'm trying to do as part of this whole OpenSimon effort is to really just start these types of conversations so that, and by the way, I'm starting conversations with outside LMS providers, so like D2L and some others, to start to think about how they can structure data in such a way that it can be used in our learning engineering tools. So, just starting to have these conversations, I think, is going to go a long way to start to make these kind of data sets more readily available. So, yeah, it might not be available at the moment. We'd have to look into it, and you'd have to ask your particular learning resource provider if they have that kind of data.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
Sure. Any other questions before I move on? You can see it's a pretty easy technique to use, and they've made it even easier with this automated tool. But as we just discussed, the trick is to get that data set in the right set of data to be able to run it. So what can you do? I'm always looking for ways to build out more of this community and make it feel like more of a community where people are supporting each other. And so I'm always open to feedback. And now that you've been exposed to this framework and technique and tool, hoping that you can go in, play with it, and give us your feedback about it. Is it that easy to use? Are you having trouble getting that kind of data? Is there anything we can do to facilitate conversations about data, data sets and types of engagement data? So use it, give us feedback, perform additional studies that focus on continuous improvement of content using learning analytics just in general. And again, share with us in the community what you found out. We're always looking for ways, the best ways to capture something like engagement data. I talked about this before, that engagement data is usually in the form of page views. That doesn't, as you can imagine, there's limitations to that. Page views will tell you what a student clicked on, what they looked at, but they can't tell you if they actually read the material, if they actually engaged with the material in any way where learning could take place. It's one of the reasons why we developed the Open Learning Initiative platform the way we did, because we really believe that learn by doing, that interaction, really goes a long way to help learning, but it also so happens to give us lots of data about performance of student outcomes, and not just did they read text or watch a video. So we're always looking to experiment and finding new ways to capturing what is engagement and the best ways to do that. I mean, I have folks at CMU who have gone as far as to try to use eye tracking on a page to try and figure out if students are reading that material. And I'll have to check in with them to find out how that's going. But I believe it was actually kind of successful. But again, not something that's accessible to everyone. So we're always looking for that, and just your ideas about it. Find, once you get familiar with the framework and tool, you can also build your own components in LearnSphere. You can use the integrated and complementary tools in LearnSphere, such as those other data sets. You can build your own components. The code for LearnSphere, by the way, is available on GitHub. And so if you have some really ambitious developers, you could really take that code and start to experiment with developing complementary tools, or even doing something like taking that RISE analysis, and you saw how it has, the little bit of the drill in. If you hover over a dot, it'll give you some information, but maybe there's something cooler yet that can be done with it, where you can drill in and start to think about, okay, well, drill into one of those dots and ask a particular set of questions about that activity. I can imagine some software developers would be able to do some cool stuff with that. So this has gone kind of fast, but I also wanted to share some things that I thought of, questions to start to talk about and think about with regard to these types of things. And I think I've mentioned some of them, but how do we measure content that's tightly integrated? So how do you tease apart engagement on an activity versus a text on a page? And or that's probably a bad example, but integrated content, how if you have a tutor, a cognitive tutor, how do you get at each component of that tutor? There's other examples that aren't coming to mind at the moment, but I'm sure you come up with some. What is the true effectiveness of particular techniques? So you could break those activities down into like categories of activities and run the RISE framework against that and see if maybe video versus reading versus some other type of activity is better or worse at helping students reach mastery. And then, there's all kinds of particular or similar research questions that we could start to investigate using this framework. So I want to do another poll while I have you. And it's more about, I am interested in do you think you have the data that you would be able to use in a RISE framework? Because I think that's one of the sticking points. And so the poll is, do you think you have data that you could use with this framework and tool? And it's, the options are yes, absolutely, yes, but maybe more instruction, would have to figure out how to get the data, or no, you just know off the bat this would be, impossible. It looks like all of you who have answered the poll has said maybe, but would need to figure out how to get this data. And that's pretty much what I expected, because the tool and the framework seems pretty easy to use, but it's that data that's the tricky part. Oh, it looks like someone does have the data ready to be organized. So I'm really excited about that, and I would love to hear your results after you have tried it out. Okay. So I think I had one more poll. Let me see. Oh, RISE workshop. So I'm interested in what would be helpful. I know this is kind of an easier technique, but how many of you would be interested in a more deeper dive, like bringing your own data and kind of doing a walkthrough, a live walkthrough with it? Oh, that's great. So 2 people have said that yes, they'd love that kind of thing. So I will put that definitely on my list of topics for an upcoming webinar. I think I was talking this morning with Norm Beer, who's executive director of the Simon Initiative, and thinking about ways we could be more engaging in the coming year around these tools and techniques. And I was thinking that maybe having these types of workshops where you kind of bring your data and we work through it together kind of thing might be helpful. It sounds like it would be. Okay. So that's really the end. This was I think a pretty quick webinar, maybe. I haven't looked at the time, but know that we have more. We have one every other week. They're scheduled right now through the end of the year. The next one's on October 2nd. And like I said before, it will be it will be Ken Kadinger who will actually be in the next 2 or leading the next 2 with some other folks who have made use of some of these tools and techniques, and then kind of talking together about how to use the tools and techniques that are available in both LearnSphere and DataShop for your learning analytic needs. So thank you all so much for participating, and I hope to see you at another webinar, but I'll pause now. Sorry if you have any other questions or comments.
I have one more question. This is Donna again. Would you be willing if I emailed you to kind of answer a question?
Absolutely.
Okay. Could you type your email in the box?
Yes. Let me give you my email.
Awesome. Thanks. I don't want to take up everybody's time here.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. So that's my email address. Contact me anytime, anyone. If you have any.
Erin, can you hear me as well?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Yeah, I muted myself. So I actually have a colleague who is interested in using Tetrad within LearnSphere.
Yes.
But So first, they had some concerns about data security. So I know it's supposed to be private, and it's not supposed to be accessed or viewed by anyone else. But do you have any thoughts or concerns about how secure the data might be, or would it be available to external parties? That's kind of what their concern was.
Yeah, no, we take data privacy very seriously. As you can imagine, we run a lot of research on learning data, and so we go through a lot of effort to, if we're going to put data sets out there, to anonymize them, to make sure they can't be tracked back in any way. I have to tell you, I'm not as familiar with Tetrad, but I know in LearnSphere and Data Shop, and I can imagine Tetrad as well, you have the ability to turn to make your data either private or public. And if it's private, it truly is private. It's only available to you through your account.
Okay. Do you have, and so you mentioned anonymizing the data. Is that a practice that you would recommend for anybody uploading data into LearnSphere, just to anonymize it before it was uploaded?
I would say that if you ever plan to share the results in any way, or to look at it together with someone who might not should have access to that kind of data, anonymizing it is a best practice. I can actually ask my colleagues and find out what they do and share that information out.
That'd be awesome. And then my next question is just about Tetrad specifically. I didn't see it listed as a specific thing that we would be looking at in the webinar series. Do you know if it's going to come up at any time?
I can make one. So you're right. I don't have it on my list. I think it's mainly because, Richard Shyness is the primary developer of that, and I would really want him to talk about it. And as you can imagine, as Dean of the Humanities and Social Sciences College, he's really busy, but I will try and get him. What I will do is I'll inquire now to get him on my calendar and get on his schedule as soon as possible and arrange a webinar around that.
Yeah, I'm planning to attend almost all of them, but I know Tetrad was something that we're really interested in, and also MOOCDB.
Okay. Oh, yeah. You're right. I don't have Carolyn Rose, who's the developer of all of the MOOCDB and Discourse DB stuff, but I can definitely arrange to get them in as soon as possible.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's all I had.
Great. Well, again, thank you guys so much. It's been great having you. Thanks for attending. Let me know if there's anything that can make these webinars better too. I started to develop a short form, like a quick survey to send out. So I'll probably be doing that soon, but always, I'm pretty accessible. So just send me an email if you have any questions, specific questions or ideas or feedback. And thank you again, and have a great afternoon, everyone.